Daniel Cormier. Daniel Cormier is defending his UFC heavyweight title. That's right. Daniel Cormier is the UFC heavyweight champion. Beat Stipe Miocic. Knocked him out. He will defend it against a man named Derrick Lewis. If you want, I did some early analysis. It's on the YouTube page, and you can look back, or it's in Enjoy the Hostilities 2 or 3 ago. Derrick Lewis, before we get into some aspects of this fight, let's look at how cool it would be to be Derrick Lewis. And why do we, let's just look at this for a moment. Why do we cheer for Derrick now? A lot of reasons. He's an interesting guy, but I mean in this fight. Because fucking underdogs. We all feel like we're the underdog. Every one of us. The richest guy in the world somehow feels like he's an underdog. The most successful guy in the world feels like he's an underdog. Jay-Z feels like he's an underdog. Because whether he is today or, whoever, like who's the greatest basketball player in the world? LeBron James?
Yeah, LeBron.
LeBron James will tell you, he might not say he's an underdog today, but he'll go, oh man, I was always an underdog and it drove me. We all feel that. So of course we fucking connect to the guy who just like is getting beat up for 14 minutes and 40 seconds or whatever and then lands a huge punch. But this is an analogy for life, for like some of the beautiful things that happen in life. You know what I like most about this setup from that perspective is that wasn't the fight that made him the millionaire. That wasn't the punch that made him the millionaire. Wasn't the punch that made him the champion. It was the one that gave him the chance to do it. Mm-hmm. That's fucking cool. That's cool. Because do we want just one thing where we can like find the best in ourselves to win it all, to get everything, to like get... Yeah, some of us do, but wouldn't we just settle to have your one great moment to get the chance? That's why it's so awesome. He landed that big punch and it gave him the chance. The crazy part is because of the nature of fighting and the nature of competition and the nature of all of these kinds of things is in many ways, like, the only way he can win is to kind of do it again. Doesn't mean he has to, like, survive and do it right at the last minute, but he's got to kind of find that one big one, like you pretty much do. I mean, Derrick Lewis, you go back, I don't have the numbers, I can pull them up, but the numbers don't matter. You can, anything to me, when we used to do the job, 2012 and stuff, we would go up to sit at the desk and we were going to talk about Derrick Lewis versus Daniel Cormier. And back in the day, and this is still done in all kinds of things where people talk about news and sports and art and stuff, you just go and fill your head with numbers that you could pull out. So when Ramdeen said something, I'd be like, oh, Lewis has 11 KOs, but 8 of them are on the ground. Now I don't have that exact number because this is not that. This is work out the aspects of it. But, if we do go ahead, what I can tell you about Derrick Lewis is he has a ton of knockouts. But if you go and look, most of them, he's on the top position on the ground. Now, Mark, you see any likelihood that he's going to be on top of... Okay, let me put it another way. Derrick Lewis could be on top of Daniel Cormier. If he is, how's that most likely to happen?
By knocking him down.
right? Like, I got a tear in my eye thinking of that because it's sort of beautiful and it's sort of cool. Like, but he still needs to do the thing that he does. So it's like, how could Derrick Lewis win this fight? One huge punch fucking does it. Or he's on top smashing him. How would that happen? One huge punch and he does it, right? But he's done this. But yeah, so, 18 knockouts. Even this last one, he's still on the ground. Mm-hmm. Like, we're remembering in our brain, we're remembering the clock ticking, the Volkov coming forward, boom, but it still ended up there. So he's either going to knock Dan out with a big clobber, or he's going to hit him with a big clobber, and he's going to fall down, and then he's going to beat him up. Now, having said that, that's not 100% ever. No amount is. Fucking other people have inside tripped great wrestlers and it just happened, or body locked a guy, weigh him by 40 pounds. Of course, there's other slim possibilities. And those could happen. And people are like, holy shit, he got a takedown against Cormier and then he beat him up. That is possible. Don't ever say something's impossible. Not like this. Not in these settings. Not with your vision can be compromised in a moment. Like your equilibrium can go with a weird shot to the ear. Like all these things are super possible. But super as in slim. Super slightly possible. Very possible in a small way. But they're possible. But most likely, he's got to do exactly what he did to get him here. And if he did that, wouldn't that be just the craziest thing going? Like the craziest, most amazing, exciting, cool moments. These are some of the reasons we watch sport and art and performance and fucking hip-hop battles and whatever you watch. But these weird, crazy, amazing, once-in-a-lifetime things. Of course. But what's so weirdly unfair? And again, do we need to dig in? Are there things about Derrick Lewis outside of using the word brawler and power and one punch? Yeah, there are. And maybe we'll touch on some of them. And maybe you'll find some of them interesting. And little subtleties, that matter in this thing. But I'm interested in like how we in a fight like this, how and why we consume it. So I'm not as interested as I normally am in these two, although of course we're interested in that. I'm interested in the us, the why. Why are we interested? Why do we like it? And I kind of feel bad for Dan Cormier. It's like, it's a strange thing. I don't feel bad for him. He's going to make $1 million to fight a guy who's ranked number 14 or whatever. I don't know where he's ranked. It depends where Volkov was. It also depends how excited like the people who vote on that were. So rankings are what they are. But this is, you call Dan Cormier with an injured hand 5 weeks out, although heavyweight's different, from a fight and say, you want to fight this guy, 19 names out of 20. It's like, are you kidding? I'm not ready to fight. But then you're like, oh, shit, somebody that on paper I'm better than at literally everything? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll do that. So definitely don't pity Cormier from that point of view. He's getting $1 million for what is on paper. I'm stressing that heavily. And again, I'm stressing heavily the easiest fight going because that he could possibly get. Do you think that's true, Mark?
Yeah, mainly because it's a really good stylistic matchup for DC. DC is a pressure fighter, and Derrick Lewis doesn't have the greatest cardio tank. So 2 plus
all
2,
of these things. I mean, if we do break it off into categories, wrestling. Well, I mean, I'm Daniel Cormier. Look what I did. This guy just kind of wrestles like he's big and strong. Kickboxing. Man, I landed punches on like Josh Barnett, overhand punches like in, however, a decade ago.
Knocked out Stipe to get the championship.
Exactly. So, I mean, we're going to compare that. Fitness. This guy, he doesn't seem, although he has knocked guys out in the 4th round. So don't forget that. But does he look like he's exhausted like a couple minutes into fights? Yeah.
Yeah, but even like DC's gone to war with Gustafsson, 5 hard rounds.
Exactly. So we start comparing those things. We got that. Then we start comparing subtleties, high level of training, years of training, coaching.
Quote, unquote, fight IQ.
Yeah, all these things. We start comparing all of it. And I'm Dan, and I'm like, and this is not how I do these things often. And not because it's not always correct. And it's not always, but it's because all plateaus are created by building formulas, and when we start to operate outside the formula, sometimes we break the plateau. But if I jot it all down into a list, and I'm Dan Cormier, or as some people put it, they say all the check marks are on this side. Again, I don't see it. I don't want to see it that way, although some of that is definitely true. But I avoid fixating on that because it allows me to see in different ways. If you fixate on something, you're disallowing yourself to see other ways. But if we do, we've got 2 categories, and Dan's got like yes, yeah, okay, I'll take that fight. That's not being critical of anybody. That's not my opinion, and I'm not saying that I know what Dan's thinking, but on some level, that would be some pretty standard thinking that a high-level fighter would take. It's like, wait, Dan, and you don't want this happening around you, but some people might say to him, dude, this would be the easiest fight you've had in years. If we look at who he has fought, and again, this is what people will say. I am not saying this is my feeling, because I don't necessarily subscribe to this approach, but you look at it on paper. Stipe Miocic, Ozdemir. Now, I think Derrick Lewis actually a tougher fight than Volkan Ozdemir.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
I actually do. So that is out the Jones. I just read John Jones. Then John Jones.
Rumble.
AJ, Anderson Silva. Although Anderson's smaller and 40-something, he's still
And
Anderson
that was
Silva.
a short notice fight, too.
Gustafsson, AJ, Jones. I mean, Volkan Ozdemir, maybe, Volkan's probably 220 pounds. This guy's 280, 290, because he cuts to 265. Mm-hmm. So you got 70 pounds right there. That's a big difference. Fuck, that's a lot. But, yeah, I mean, on paper, where fights clearly do not take place, this is the, quote, easiest fight that you've had. Well, that's a problem sometimes. You certainly don't want that to be the case. You're also, I've said this a few times. My job sometimes puts me in really places that for, an obsessive, like somebody who's just deeply curious forever, it's an incredible gift for me. Like, and one of those was when Dan was fighting AJ, UFC 210, Buffalo. Were you there?
No, that was...
No, sorry. Maybe it was AJ the first time in Las Vegas.
For the interim belt?
Did I go to Buffalo? Oh, I did go to Buffalo.
You did go to
Buffalo.
Buffalo.
Right.
That was
no,
the
it was Buffalo.
Cruise wrap-up.
Yeah, it was Buffalo. Oh, yeah. And we did Dominic Cruz wrap-up that weekend?
I wasn't there, though, because I didn't
you
get my
weren't in
passport.
the arena. Right. You weren't in the arena, but you were in Buffalo.
No. Remember, I didn't have my passport?
Oh, yeah,
We
right.
went
Shit.
from Dallas
right.
onwards.
Right. Yeah, right. So backstage, and I saw DC. And again, for me, and I was in my spot. I wasn't like wandering off from where I'm assigned. They just happened to assign me to a backstage area for my backstage post-fight interviews and stuff and working with my friend Aaron. The walkout was right there. And so just the nature of the Buffalo arena. And DC comes by to get ready to walk out. And maybe some people know this, maybe some don't. But when you see them walk out of the back, you see them come strolling out and, it's go time. Well, some of you have seen the footage from behind. Some of you have seen the, what are those, the embedded and stuff. Mm-hmm. But there's a process. And even when I fought on a low level, this process still exists. You need to be at that curtain. Your walkout's going to be at 11:20, say. You need to be at that curtain at 11:05 or 11:10. It's a long time. To be at that curtain at 11:10, somebody's going to get you from your room at 10:55. 10:55. At 10:35, you're warming up, you're stressing out. 10:35, you're hitting pads, or probably done hitting pads by then. 10:55, somebody's got you and walking you to another spot where you'll be ready. And then there's another spot, and then the curtain. And so the greats understand that when they go, okay, it's time, that means you're actually not fighting for like 35, 40 minutes. If you've ever seen, they talk about the adrenaline dump. Sometimes not even an adrenaline dump. You're just fucking exhausted by the time you got there. Like that dump happened the first time, especially on debuts. Somebody came to your room and knocked at 42 minutes before they say go.
I think that's why a lot of the old guard fighters miss Burt Watson, because when he would scream, it's rolling, that was the actual time.
That was the real thing. They knew Burt.
Yeah.
They knew Burt, and Burt knew them. And that was when, Burt signified that, for them, for sure. But DC, I see him from the time that they've got him to the time that they bring him to this spot, and then for sure 10 minutes in that spot until he hits the curtain. And I've been in those back rooms, 9 fights and 20 other things, doing interviews, cornering a friend, whatever. But I've never been at that level. This is the best in the world. And the intensity that this guy's got going on at that stage, and he won. And after, Luke Rockhold came back, and we were interviewing him, and he was talking about that moment. And he was saying, Dan was agitated. He was stressed because he knew how dangerous this guy. He knew how big this fight was. He knew how hard this was, and I could feel his. And he said, and I saw the moment AJ got to him and he took AJ down, I could see it all kind of go. Well, good or bad or indifferent, that worked. That worked. Why did that work? Because maybe that's what Dan needs to be at his best. We're all different. And that the range of what these fighters need or where they operate the best is varied, very, very varied. Some are better calm, and they get too wound up. And some of those guys, they have a softer walkout song that they've associated with relaxing. They have a coach that speaks to them calmly because they're too wound. Some of them are too chill, and then they start slow, and maybe they found that they got finished early a couple times, or they don't get going, and they end up on their back early in a fight. Whatever point that is, Cormier on that night, very, very wound up, was able to perform at a high level, won that fight. Is he going to be like that against the guy who, quote, his friends said, quote, as the easiest fight he's had in a long time? Is he going to understand? Because is this guy as skilled as Anthony Johnson? Maybe, maybe not. But is he as dangerous? Is he as one-shot dangerous as Anthony Johnson? Fucking rights he is. Fucking rights he is. In fact, there are very few people as dangerous with one shot as Anthony Johnson, and Derrick Lewis is one of them. Is he as, quote, fast? Is he maybe as smooth? Maybe not. But the other thing I was going to say about what makes him different is he's deceptive. Very deceptive. There's an innate deceptiveness that it's going to take a while to decipher. Randy Couture told me this about Brock Lesnar. Somebody else DC could be fighting. We'll talk about that if and when it gets closer. Randy said, proportionally, the range that you are, because of the shape that you are, my eye detects it. I've been training with a bunch of people that are big and whatever. And so a guy with shoulders this big, but Brock is proportionally so exaggerated that his range, his reach is actually much longer than you expect. And for sure, Derrick Lewis is like that. He also can move a lot faster than you read. So he's got a longer reach that you don't see because of where the belly reaches and where the armpit reaches, and he moves a little quicker, and he's a little bit deceptive. This is a fucking dangerous guy.
It should also be noted he's lost a ton of weight, so he will be quicker than what he's normally.
Yeah,
so
and
for at least the opening frame.
Yes, and so I mean, he seems to have lost weight. So let's say he's only 275 or whatever, which could be a lot because he could have cut from close to 300 for some of those. If on the other hand, and I'm going to wrap up this thinking with this, we'll definitely look back at this fight. And we're not just going to look back at the results and go, see X, Y, or Z, or wow, A, B, or C. We'll look back and look at the different aspects of it, because there always are a lot. It's never this happened, so therefore it means this. And we live in a world where we do that often, and we're trying not to do that here, and I hope that's, I hope we get there. But he's dangerous. He's dangerous and he's deceptive. But the reason I mentioned after is it can come back to haunt you when you're he's like, yeah, I've just been training to be in shape and I've been doing cardiovascular work and whatever. Well, if somebody's a 10 and you're a 3 and you just do all your work to get to 4.5 and they're a 10 and you're a 4.5, was that really the best use of your time? You only have what you have. In 3 weeks, now, pure aerobic capacity is one of the things that increases the fastest. It can increase quickly, very quickly. Just raw power, pure strength, those things take a much longer time. The aerobic capacity can increase quickly, so maybe it is the best use of his time. If he knocks this guy out and he's still light on his feet in the second round, we'll say it definitely was. But if it gets to the fourth round and he wishes he was heavier, and then it won't be. Mm-hmm. But there's no right or wrong answer, and this guy is not, by his own admission, not an elite expert in martial arts and athletic performance. So it's a guess what he's planning to do. But he's dangerous, man. And if Dan doesn't go in there, if he goes in there too relaxed, now against a guy that you're better skill, being relaxed is good. But against a guy who can deceptively get his powerful shot on you early, being too relaxed is bad. So he's got to find that right. They call it arousal, and it's not the kind that, that you like. It's not that kind. It's just, that's a term meaning psychological, your arousal, your how lit you are. And he's got to find the right level. But it's a super interesting fight, and I'm very excited that I'm going to be there. I'm very excited to see it. And I'm excited for both these guys. Dan getting a chance to perform before he fights either Jones or Lesnar, unless Jones fights Lesnar, and I wouldn't put that past Jones trying to make that happen, by the way. This is good for Dan and for Derrick Lewis. How could we all not cheer for Derrick Lewis? So enjoy the hostilities on that one.